everybody. Welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It is Francis and Nate back at you. Nate, tomorrow, and for all of you listening, by the time you hear this, I will be one step closer to my mid-40s, I guess. I'm turning 42 tomorrow.
Congratulations. My brother just turned 43, so I didn't realize you had a birthday in late March as well.
Yep. I am the eldest of all of the of the Bethaniverse, I think. I am the grandfather. I don't know if I don't know, how old is Riley? Riley seems young.
He's in his 30s.
Yeah.
He was born in the 90s though.
Yeah.
So he's a bit younger. Yeah, you definitely are. I think it's you, then me, then Shocks, then Joe.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was thinking about this not that long ago, realizing I got a friend request, and it was somebody who I had stayed with when I studied abroad. She's a probably my parents' age when I studied in France, and accepted it. And I realized, I'm like, oh, I wonder how my host siblings are doing. And I realized because at the time when I was 17, I lived with a family, and I had a 12-year-old host brother. And I realized now doing the math, I'm like, he's not that much younger than me. It's just that 5 years is a huge difference when you're 17. I
wonder how the kid is doing, and the kid is 35. The kid is doing.
Yeah. He's going to be 36 this year. Yeah. So you realize those differences are there. But then because I thought about it with Joe, that I had some friends who were like freshmen when I was a senior, because we were all in the same swim team, and they were all born in like 88, because that school year, when you think about it, well, my grade would have been 84 to 85. So like the 88 to 89 kids, I think, or 87 to 88 would have been freshmen, something like that. And so they seem, they were 14, they were kids, but now in retrospect, it's like, that's a very small difference once you get into your 30s for sure.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I have a 5-year difference between the two of us. You and Cynthia have a little
about
bit
4.5 years. Yeah. She was born in 1980. Yeah. Right. And I was born in 1984.
My wife at the age of 18 was not going to have anything to do with my 13-year-old ass, which was the correct thing to do, because I was a gross, any boy going through puberty is disgusting in general. Anybody going through puberty is disgusting.
Any kids are. I think there's obviously more of a social penalty and a lot of social stuff kind of pressed down on girls. But like, I think also it also depends on personality, because I mean, I both had peers and also have like, either taken care of or worked in environments where we're around kids, and there's a broad range. Some of them are pretty fastidious about their appearance or about like cleanliness. Some of them aren't. You can definitely tell the ones. There's sometimes when I want to be like, to boys especially, like, that if you just gotta use skin cleaner, shower, and use skincare stuff, and like acne is going to happen no matter what, but you can reduce it a lot. But, I was the same way. Also be like, when you have acne, there's things you can do that don't turn it into gigantic lunar landscapes on your face. I know that popping them is satisfying, but if you actually use the things that they've made to treat them, you can reduce them without them having to be popped, and thus becoming scabs, and thus making your face look like you
got scarred.
You got hit by the scarring part like that's normally, I think, a dermatologist in the audience can correct me and call me a moron. I think that's trending closer to what they call cystic acne, which is that's a thing that's way more complicated. But like in general, people, the scabbing part, the having the sores and stuff, like there's other ways to reduce pimples that don't require that, and thus don't require you to look like you got hit with the world's weakest shotgun blast.
Well, you got Dick Cheney'd in the face with some bird shot.
Yeah. Slightly far enough distance away getting Dick Cheney that it was more just scabs and no serious wounds. But
we had an argument with our daughter yesterday, because I don't know, she's at this stage where she's almost 10, and let me tell you, it's not easy, because she's like a fully formed person at this point with her own opinions, and you can't just force her to do things. You can't just be like, you're a 10-year-old and I'm an adult and I'm going to force you to do X, Y, and Z. We try not to do that, because it's a real fucking dick move. But like, also yesterday, it's like, can you please just get in the shower and get clean? You don't even need to wash your hair. Just take 5 minutes, get in the shower. You're very small. Wash your body. Get out. That's all I'm asking you to do. No. Refuse to do it. Doesn't want to do it. I don't want to take a shower. I don't want to do this. So, and then you have to start doing the like, all right, well, like, what's our bargaining going to be here? Like, what am I going to take away? I don't want to take anything away, but I'm going to have to take things away if you're not going to do the things. And so her deal is that she has said no screens today, Thursday. She's like, no screens, no video games, no tablet time, no watching TV, anything like that. Any of that stuff. She's like, I won't do any. If it means that I don't have to take a shower now, I won't do any of that stuff. And Nate, let me tell you something. I took Friday off because specifically I wanted today, because Friday is my birthday, and I wanted today to be a nice family evening with everybody where we could stay up late. But no, I don't get that, because I've got a daughter who couldn't take 10 friggin' minutes out of her day, out of her evening, to take a shower. something that I do every day because I love it. I love taking a shower. I love being clean. I love scrubbing up because, you know, you and I spent a lot of time in the dirt. It feels nice to be clean.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit that sometimes time gets ahead of me and I have to force myself to shower before bed, which I don't really like doing because otherwise I won't have showered that day.
You're an evening showerer, right? Your evening
no,
morning?
I would actually prefer, I think, if I had my shit together. But I mean, ultimately, my schedule is flexible enough. If I have to do something and I have to be out and I have to leave early in the morning, I'll just shower beforehand. Mandatory, like I don't mind. But yeah, I think I'm definitely like an evening or afternoon exercise person, which doesn't really correspond to having a normal schedule. But what I'd say is for me, I mean, it's weird because these kinds of things weren't really up for discussion when I was a kid. You can kind of pick up what I'm putting down here in the sense that like I wouldn't have had the option of bargaining away something I wanted to do the next day. I just would have gotten the shit kicked out of me. Yeah. And so I don't think that's good, but I also think that it depends. I mean, I haven't had to deal with this so far. You know, obviously my daughter's too young. She takes a bath. She gets excited about a bath every single time. And then as soon as she actually gets put in the tub, and I use the thermometer to make sure the temperature is correct. But as soon as she gets in the tub, for some reason, she's like, I hate this. Get me out of here. But we've just been, you know, like it's not a long process because she's a little kid. She's a toddler. And so it's just very quick, you know, sort of the requisite amounts of hair washing, body washing, and then rinsing. And then we're good. And then getting dressed and stuff for bed. But when I was a kid, I don't really think I liked not showering. I think there's a degree to which I'm hesitant to be like, oh, boys are one way and girls the other way. But I know that for me, my experience being a boy, like I think I would just kind of get distracted with other things. There were things I wanted to be doing and I would just forget or I wouldn't care. And my thought was always like, it doesn't matter. I know one time I got caught. My dad got really mad at me because not only had I not showered, but I had actually gotten out of bed and not taken my pajama bottoms off and just put my school clothes on over them. And he happened to catch me when he walked into the room as I was undressing, and I got a stern talking to about that. Probably was like 10, I think. So like not quite at the age of being like sweaty enough for it to be really gross, but like still it's a hygiene thing, you know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
we've caught the daughter doing things like that, or like what she likes to wear these like onesies and sending her to dance class. Dance class is like specifically you have to wear this t-shirt for the dance school and shorts, some kind of like pants down below. And she's like, no, I'm just gonna wear the onesie. I put everything on underneath it and I'll take it off when we get to the dance studio. So when we picked her up afterwards, she still had the onesie on. She's like, yeah, I didn't put anything underneath this. And like, you know, just having that like, do I have to like, why are you making me check you? Why do I have to like make you like, oh, you said you did the thing, all right, unzip your hoodie and let me make sure you did these things, because obviously I cannot trust the words that come out of your mouth. And I don't think like this isn't some like what's happening to my daughter, she's a pathological liar. This is all children at that age of just like, I'm gonna see what I can get away with. So it's just it's just real annoying, especially like, you know, when you and I grew up and I didn't have parents that like kicked my ass. My dad was stern, but he never, you know, raised a hand against us. But like, you know, you and I grew up in a time where it's just like, you didn't do that. You didn't talk back to the parents. You didn't do these things because you were scared of them. And like, I'm glad that my daughter's not afraid of me. I don't want her to be. And, you know, sometimes there's arguments where you're just like, I don't know why I'm having this fucking argument with you. Like, you don't want to shower today. Like, the only reason I was like, look, you need to take a shower is because the last time she took a shower was Monday. And like, you need to take a shower. It's been like 2 days. Like, we're going 1 day without a shower. Fine, whatever. But like 3, we're starting to stretch it.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think for me, it's like, obviously I went to public school and I think that there were ways in which like if you smelled bad, like, or you looked dirty or you wore the same clothes 2 days in a row, you would get made fun of. And obviously like getting into 5th, 6th grade era, even more so. And so I think there was a degree to which like I was cognizant of that. I don't really think that period lasted very long for me of being the kind of like gross little boy for like pre-adolescent gross little boy phase. I think that by the time I started, because in Indiana, we started middle school in 6th grade. And so I think I just always got up in the morning and just took a shower. I mean, I remember it sucked, man. Like I had to be at the bus stop, I think at like 6:50 because the bus came around that time. And then, I mean, school started for us at, I think middle school actually may have started at like 8:05, but it might have started earlier than that. I mean, we had like 8 periods a day. So like, you know, 50 or 55 minute class periods every day and then 5-minute passing periods. And then in high school, it was like 8:05 or 8:10, and we got out at like 3:30, I think. Middle school, I want to say we got out at like 3:15 or 3:20, but I don't remember. And so it's like, I don't know, I was obviously, like, I also did sports. I mean, I started doing cross country when I was in 6th grade, and obviously I would have to shower after that because you'd come home and like, you've been running and you're sweaty and you're gross. And also, like, because of the way cross country works, like when you're running on trails and stuff, this is why when people say they don't wash their legs, I'm like, that's really fucking weird.
That's weird.
Because like you see how much like stuff will, when you go running, for example, like on trails, how much of like the dust and dirt and stuff will accumulate, especially if you've been sweating, like around like your ankles, your calves and such. And like, you have to scrub it pretty well to get it clean. You know what I mean? And it's like, when people are like, oh yeah, just let the water run. I was like, well, that's gross.
That's weird. Yeah.
I remember somebody trying to argue that, and one of Cynthia's friends being like, that must make it really gross when they moisturize. And Cynthia was like, do you think these fucking people moisturize? I appreciated her frankness in that response.
Yeah. A lot of
we're a moisturizing family now because goddamn, in the winter, living in an apartment that's weatherproofed and well heated, it's dry, and my skin gets so dry that, like, you know, I have to put lotion on after I shower every time, and so it's just become a habit.
For me, it's specifically my knees. Anything between my ankles and my knees, it just gets real itchy during the winter. So we always have some lotion around. Otherwise my shins are gonna be bleeding because I'm scratching it so much. Yeah,
it doesn't get that bad for me, but I think that, like, I noticed it that when I'd gone and run some errands by riding my bike around town, that may have been a day when I moisturized, but I think that it was just that it was particularly dry, and there was like the friction from, you know, wearing jeans. I mean, like, I'm using an e-bike, like I am pedaling and getting exercise, but it's not like I'm Tour de Francing it. But I had like a stretch of like a large patch of really dry skin on my thigh, and I was like, oh damn, this is some real ass winter. Like, in Britain, you have dampness, the houses are not weatherproofed, and it's not as cold in the winter. And so, like, don't get me wrong, you can still get all of the things, especially if, like, a lot of people in Britain, it sucks, like, can't afford to heat their homes because it's so expensive to begin with, because it's so inefficient, and then also energy prices are so high. But like, I never had winter dry skin stuff to the same degree in Britain. And I think it's because we live in an apartment that's ventilated and weatherproofed. It's got like a ventilation system where, from what I can tell, there are in the kitchen, in the bathrooms, there are ducts with a little like a circle duct with like a filter vent. And if you take that off to clean it, you will feel suction. It will sound like there's a fan, and there might be a fan in the top of the shaft in the building, but it's sucking the air out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's also like, you have on the because I think it's double paned windows, the way that they're framed up, you have the little air vent on top. It's a very small air vent as well. So like, it's ventilated, it's sealed, weatherproofed, etc. The heat works really well, and it's dry. It's really, really dry in winter. I mean, I was shocked because it wasn't in great shape, but I had this old, like, kind of composite wood, sort of, I think, fake bamboo looking cutting board that is extremely like Crate and Barrel 2, like CB2, the fucking 2000s brand. It cracked from getting too dry.
Oh, really?
I've never had that happen before. Yeah, like wood stuff here, it has to be, if it's not sealed, then it has to be oiled. Like, it'll crack. And so I realized, like, okay, well, that makes sense then why my fucking skin is dry, because if that's what's happening to
if the
planks
cutting
of
board
wood,
can't deal, the cutting board needs some Jergens, you know, certainly it makes sense that you might.
Yeah, exactly. Slathering my cutting board in Aveeno to just get it back to life. What's funny is that as we've kind of gotten back into spring weather, I had to just get rid of the cutting board because, I mean, it was really old anyway, and I have a couple others, so like I'm not going to miss it. But as the weather had warmed up and had gotten more humid, the cracks actually looked way less pronounced. It was almost like the wood had swelled or something.
It gets a little bit of that moisture back into it, and
exactly. That's the Jergens body shampoo right there. You know, fixing the wood. But no, it
shampoo and condition your cutting boards.
But no, I was just thinking about that. That, I mean, that cutting board was sitting on a shelf in the kitchen. You know, when I hadn't oiled it since the last time I'd used it. But you know, it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't something that was like. It wasn't like I had been, you know, putting it in a fucking wood kiln or, you know, brick wood fired oven. And yeah, that happened. So what's happening to? I mean, we had flowers. I got Cynthia flowers on Valentine's Day, and that shit turned into flower mummies very quickly. Even with having the water changed. Yeah. So it's just the nature of it.
Yeah. Our house is very humid inside, but I think it's because our thermostat, we have a Nest thermostat, and it detects interior humidity, and it's right next to the bathroom. And the bathroom, we got the windows replaced. We got a couple windows and a couple doors replaced in the house months ago. And now we don't actually have any ventilation in the bathroom. Like there's no, like we used to at least have a window you could slide up, but we don't have that anymore. So it gets very humid in the bathroom itself. And like, it's one of those things in the back of my head of like, I need to get this taken care of. And I can probably get this taken care of myself, but like I have to vent, out, but it's not like, okay, you can vent it up into the attic. It has to go all the way out of the house. It's got to go all like, so it's got to go up and then it's got to go either we have vents in the soffit that overhang the edges or it's got to go up through the roof. So I don't know how I'm going to do that. But now we're talking about getting solar put on the roof. Like you can, there's companies where they will come and they'll put solar on your roof and you're paying for the solar panels, but the solar panels generate your electricity. So like your electric bill will be like $6 a month while you're paying, $100 a month for the solar panels themselves. So I don't know.
Is it a thing that does like a grid tie inverter to send it back to the grid, or it just is like a replacement for your, okay.
No, and I was asking about this. I was like, so what happens, when the apocalypse happens and I need to, kind of pull this shit and just run my house on my solar on its own. They're like, yeah, you can't do that. I'm like, all right, well, I don't see the point of this. I mean, it's a better resale value for the home and it's good for the house. And it's, we're Missouri, so everything is fired by coal here. So it's good to do it, but also it's not exactly creating my post-apocalyptic Mad Max dream world here.
You're not going to have solar punk St. Louis.
No. We have a bunch of Mad Max guys, but instead of like having hubcaps, they just have various solar panels hanging off of them. They're just charging iPads.
I was just thinking about it, yeah, because I mean, the usual amount of household consumption is such, and obviously in the U.S. it tends to be bigger because houses tend to be bigger, but you would need a lot of solar panels, I think, but in order to like augment it or offset the cost, it doesn't really, from what I understand, it doesn't take that much. I know a lot of buildings here have it because, I mean, Switzerland is interesting because they have mostly, almost entirely really, renewable energy, but that's a kind of, it's a little bit more obvious when you dig into what the mixture is because it's mostly hydropower. And it's like, well, it's a country of mountains and glaciers and streams and lakes and stuff. And so
a lot of water running downhill. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also nuclear, although they haven't gone full Germany and shut everything down, but I think they've done more or less like a moratorium on building new nuclear. A lot of European countries did this after the Fukushima disaster in 2011, but they don't really, I mean, like there's a lot of solar on buildings. I don't really know if there's like a lot of solar parks. There's not that much wind that I'm aware of. Obviously there's no offshore wind because it's a landlocked country and they're not going to put a wind turbine in Lake Geneva.
Right.
But it's one of those things where the energy mix is actually really, I mean, it's nuts. My power bill is pretty low. It's certainly lower than it was in Britain. We don't pay for heat and hot water from our utility bill. It's included in the charges for the building. And my bill, if I wanted to, it's already 100% renewable energy. That's just the standard that comes from the publicly owned company that runs electricity for the Canton of Geneva. And if I wanted to pay like $10 more per month or $15 more per month, I could opt to not only have 100% renewable because that's just the default, but it would only be renewable energy generated within the Canton of Geneva.
That homegrown electricity.
I mean, good, cool. I understand when people do it. For me, it's just more like, well, ultimately, I mean,
not getting that lazy French energy.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily it's coming from across the border. It's just it would be coming from, I mean, it might be, I don't know, but it would be coming from probably other parts of Switzerland. But I think that that the thing is more that it's such a novelty that that's the standard to begin with and that it's not expensive. I mean, Switzerland is weird because there are a lot of things. This country has this reputation of being like way more ultra capitalist, but then there's certain things where they've just been like, well, no, it doesn't make sense to have that be a for-profit industry. We're not doing it that way. Or like, if it's going to be a private company, then we're going to have a majority stake in it. Like the government's going to have a majority stake or the canton's going to have a majority stake in it, which is like when people talk about like what Francois Mitterrand did in France in the 80s. I mean, like when they nationalized stuff, in most cases, if I'm not mistaken, they bought like a 51% stake in those companies. And that's kind of how things are here. So it's weird because Britain is the opposite. Britain is like way, way, way more like, no, everything has to be free market. Even if it's like stupidly inefficient, it adds nothing. it just costs the consumer more so that private companies can rip off the consumer, you know, while being more or less in a position to charge rent on stuff the state provides. That's just like the Britain is like the libertarian economic paradise in a lot of ways. It's odd. Most people wouldn't think that, but some of their policies, like there's no other way to describe it. But here, yeah, I mean, like we're not going to own, if we ever owned a place, I can't imagine it would be in the Canton of Geneva because it's just so expensive. Like it's just so shockingly expensive that like, I mean, quite frankly, by the time that we were in a position to look at buying a house, presumably if we have stayed here and we have become Swiss citizens, by having Swiss passports, we would then have the right to live in anywhere in the Schengen zone too. And we could, if we wanted to, just like retire across the border in France where it's way cheaper.
Yeah, there you go.
We don't have that right, and we won't until we're citizens because Britain did Brexit, so we're not EU citizens. So we can't.
You can't.
We can only live in Switzerland. And frankly,
you should have Brexited when they when England Brexited.
Well, no, I mean, if we had come here before, but I think that for a variety of reasons, for my career and for Cynthia's career.
Oh, sure. I'm not blaming you guys for not like I mean, I'm still in America and look at what's happening here. You know, we are now a fascist country. So
yeah, Jesus Christ,
I'm not exactly
dude.
running. You know, where am I going to go? So
I mean, for me, it was like I didn't realize that me being technically an EU citizen when Britain was still in the EU and I had my British passport meant that Cynthia could also, like, if we were to move to an EU country, like not Britain, but to a country in the EU, like freedom of movement zone, that Cynthia would be entitled to get a residence permit. I thought that it was more along the lines that like she had to get British citizenship first. Mm-hmm. Now I found that out. It didn't take long before I realized the mistake, but by that point we were settled in the UK and, you know, we had our own thing that was going and it felt like, okay, this needs some time to develop. And then it did, and things worked out for the career. But also, like, to be honest with you, stuff in Britain started to decline really rapidly, but that wasn't the case when we got there. There were obvious problems and it was obviously getting worse. But I think I've told this before on the show, the combination of COVID and then the energy crisis, the cost of living crisis post the supply chain crisis as a result of COVID, and then the invasion of Ukraine and the cost of energy, like the energy prices skyrocketing, that made things nosedive so quickly in Britain that like by the time that we left, there was this, my mom, I remember her asking me like, I don't understand why you guys stayed this long in the first place. And it was like, because obviously we wanted to stay until Cynthia and our daughter, you know, would be eligible to have British passports, because otherwise we weren't even thinking about America going fascist and the idea of like, I mean, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say you should come back to America and get American passports, but no, don't come back. I don't know what's going to happen to either of you. Please don't come back.
We talked about visiting and we decided not to for a variety of reasons. And some of it was cost, and some of it was problems with just the culture of things that was happening in America. And some of it is for the sheer fact that we don't want to be in a situation where potentially we either get harassed for being a mixed race couple, or people, you know, question whether or not our daughter is actually our child because the only talking she's doing right now is in a foreign language.
To be fair, she looks exactly like you though. So
right,
at least have that. But yeah, no, I absolutely understand those. Yeah.
I also, it's a question of cost. It's a question of accommodations, things being way more expensive, traveling with a toddler, all these things. And then also just like, yeah, seeing stuff getting worse. We don't live in America. Our daughter wasn't born in America, even though she has an American passport. We both were born in America and we're obviously American, but it's like, I don't know, man. Like, it's every day I see the news and it seems like something wilder is happening, and I just don't want to
be a part of that anymore. It's a smart, like, I have been telling people don't leave either. Like, if you're gonna go visit somewhere, like I can, because I'm the whitest kid that you've ever seen. I am the most American mutt. I've got roots in this country since before it was a country. So and I am my 23andMe RIP is very European and Irish. But yeah, I wouldn't want to leave, because they're gonna check my blue sky and see that I one time told Elon Musk to eat my entire ass, and I'm gonna go to Guantanamo Bay. So
well, I mean, I was thinking about this too, because we've had the discussion about taking some of the shows on tour in America, and it's like I don't really see it happening because
don't bring November here. Like,
well, that's out of the question. We wouldn't ask her to even consider it in the first place, because if people aren't aware, there's been, I don't know if this has been formally dictated yet, but there has been policy, there's been discussions where the State Department, under unanimously confirmed by the Senate to include all the Democrats, Marco Rubio, has claimed that they are going to, if people try to enter the United States on passports where the sex marker on their passport is different than their assigned sex at birth, they're going to be prosecuted for fraudulent entry to the United States. So So if trans people who have transitioned have passports that reflect their confirmed gender, they would potentially face legal problems. And it's like you are effectively obligating them to either face a potential felony prosecution or get their government to reverse the thing that they didn't want to do in the first place. It's an insane thing. It's basically criminalizing being trans and trying to visit the United States. So it's absolutely hideous. And no, I wouldn't ask her ever. But also Hussein is Muslim. His name is Hussein. He was born in Canada. He's a Canadian citizen and a British citizen. Like, he's already gets bothered when he has visited the US in the past, like extra questioning. You know, Riley is Canadian and doesn't necessarily have any of the markers of things they might look for, but like he hosts a show where we make fun of Trump and Elon Musk nonstop. And it's like if things didn't go perfectly, the best case scenario is you apply for the visas, you pay thousands of dollars. Like we're talking close to $10,000 for entertainer visas for the show. And then it just gets rejected and you're out that money. And once your application for a US visa has been denied, it complicates it in the future of trying to get another visa.
Yeah. And
like, it's a problem.
We've already seen that visas don't matter because, you know, you'll just get disappeared off the streets anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And so there's that stuff to me.
This place isn't safe for Americans. It's certainly not safe for anybody else.
But also, like, I've talked a lot of shit on this show and to include some stuff in the early days that could probably, like, if people really wanted to be stupid, could get me in trouble. So like, I mean, I do think that I once recommended a solution for a problem known as Stephen Miller that, you know, could easily get me fucking talked to at least.
Well, something I think was really funny is people got mad that Tulsi Gabbard like can get away with well, she went on a podcast on a Tuesday and she's in the reserve, so it's okay that she can do that. And like people say, well, that's, you know, she's in the military, but as a reservist who started a podcast that specifically shit talked the military 4 years while I was still in the military, I get it. And I'm not going to get her on that one. I mean, she's still obviously a Russian agent of some kind, but you know, recording on a Tuesday is fine. That's perfectly fine.
She's just she's kind of a chaos agent, and I've always thought, I mean, she sucks, don't get me wrong, like there's no zero, whatever kind of like mealy mouth stuff she might have said about being like anti-imperialist is full of shit. But what I would say is that I did always find this very interesting, that like imagine if you were one of Tulsi Gabbard's constituents in like the geographically enormous district of Hawaii that she represented before she became where the fuck she is now, and it's like you want her to talk about like problems that you're having in, I don't know, the island of Hawaii, you know, Hawaii County, and instead she's like, you know, you can't get a hearing about a problem with, I don't know, like sewage treatment in Hawaii, but instead, or like public schools or what road conditions, but she's like just going hell for leather on like Hindutva shit, like, or you know, being like, I'm in Syria proving that Bashar al-Assad is actually more deserving of the Nobel Peace Prize than Barack Obama. You know, like what the fuck, like that must be so maddening. You know what I mean? It's like if you're like, what is it, Henry Cuellar, and you're like, you're his constituent in California, and it's like, I guess the only way I can get my representative to pay attention to my issues is if I pretend to be a Zeri.
Look, Andrew Bailey, who is the current attorney general, used to be a Missouri attorney general, and if you're wondering if he ever sued anybody on behalf of the people of Missouri, the answer is no, unless you think that like suing over minimum wage things or being angry about Biden existing, like Bailey and our current, you know, it's. So yes, I do understand what it is because I live in Missouri, and in Missouri, they're currently trying to overturn all the things that we voted for. Like when we said, hey, yes, companies should have to pay more than minimum wage if you're inside of the city, and all the you know, business owners came out and were just like, oh, but that hurts our bottom line if I have to give these guys $10 an hour instead of $7 an hour. And so that's, you know, all of our legislatives trying to overturn the will of the people. So, you know, all of the shit that you see in America, Missouri is very much a microcosm. I can tell you everything that's going to happen because we have been a Republican supermajority for the last 20 years. And if you think, oh, the Republicans must have come in and done a lot of real good stuff if they've had that kind of control, you have not been listening to the show for very long. So the answer is no, that never happened. So I am with the people of Hawaii on my elected officials completely stepping on their own dicks the entire time that they're they're out there.
I mean, my representative is Yvette Clark because I'm registered still at our old address in Brooklyn, and she's just your garden variety, like New York State machine Democrat. You like, there's nothing I can expect. I know that when I reached out asking about help for trying to solve issues with Afghan friends who were fleeing Taliban, I could not get a response. I couldn't get a response from Chuck Schumer, my other one senator. I couldn't get a response from Kirsten Gillibrand, my other senator. I couldn't get a response from my MP in Britain because they don't fucking care. Like, it's amazing to have experienced trying to, like, you know, pursue things through the sort of democratic representative process in two different countries and get told to fuck off or just ignored. So, I mean, in my case, like, I mean, I think the thing that has been really stunning watching this stuff from afar is just that I feel as though in the case of what just happened with the Tufts student, the doctoral student yesterday or 2 days ago, the video was released yesterday, she co-authored an op-ed saying that all human beings are deserving of protection and that Palestinian lives matter, and that you basically arguing that if the international standard is applied and the ICC determines that Israel is committing a genocide in Palestine, which I believe they are, but like, if
they are.
The ICC does, that like it should be acknowledged as such. And apparently that opinion is enough to get you snatched off the fucking street by people in masks and black bagged. And despite a federal judge giving ICE an order saying, do not transport this person out of the state, they transported her to like the fucking prison you get killed at and get disappeared to El Salvador from in fucking Louisiana. Like, so federal judges don't matter. Like judges don't matter. Courts don't matter. The only court that matters is the fucking Opus Dei court. Sorry, Francis. And like, it's just, so to me, watching that happen, it's like, right. So.
And watching that video for me is just like, this guy is going to get shot one of these days, because that's a guy in a hoodie with a mask comes up and stops you, like walks up right in front of you and stops you. They're going to do that to the wrong person and get shot.
Yeah.
And good. I mean, fuck you. Stop disappearing people. But like that, all of that is just like, this looks like somebody is going to get robbed or
but this just looks, I mean, this could literally be paramilitaries and you wouldn't know the difference. That's the thing. Like, that's fine. You can shoot paramilitaries. It's fine. No. Paramilitaries can shoot you, Francis. That's the way it works in America.
You gotta
remember?
Shoot first. I know. I'm being flippant about a terrible situation.
No, it's horrible. And I guess the thing for me looking at it is that I think, so what gets me here is like, I do not understand why people in government feel as though the solution here is like, because I mean, you looked at the similar situation with a doctoral student at Columbia who had led protests. He's a Palestinian American. He's a permanent resident. He was disappeared. And Chuck Schumer basically was like, oh, it's bad, but also he's basically Hamas.
Right. Like, everybody was like, I don't like the opinions that he's espousing, but I'll give him the right to say it. And it's like, his opinions were stop killing Palestinians. Like, yeah, like
there was all sorts of stuff about him, you know, doing interfaith things and attending seders with Jews and all these things. Like, he is doing the thing that everyone says you're supposed to do, which is to criticize Israeli government policy, but to not ascribe some kind of direct connection or sort of like mass culpability to not even just all Jewish people, all Israelis. Which, I mean, my personal opinion is that if you're a citizen of Israel, you should burn your fucking passport. But but that's my personal opinion. I feel as though every single time it feels as though people say, all right, if the rules are that because I saw this in Britain too, the rules are that I am allowed to criticize Israeli government policy, but I have to, you know, make sure that I adhere to certain guidelines and that I always make it very, very clear, you know, to whom my complaint is addressed, and not use language that's going to potentially imply some sort of like blanket, you know, broad brush mass culpability, and certainly not ascribe like actions of the Israeli state to the actions of any or all Jews anywhere. People in general, in my experience, when people were like, fine, I'll do that because I am bothered by the human rights outrages that are taking place. I'm bothered. I want the genocide to end. And it's like, apparently that's all just like, oh, we were kidding. We're still going to call you Hamas and fucking deport you to El Salvador. Like, here's the thing. I can't make violent threats against U.S. or you know, representatives of the country I live in or the countries I'm a citizen of. But I can't say this because fuck El Salvador. No one gives a shit about El Salvador. Fuck El Salvador. Beautiful country, wonderful people, but my God, what a craven, disgusting government. And like, you have suffered so much, and it's all our fault. Honestly, the U.S. did so many horrible things to El Salvador. My beef is not with the Salvadorian people at all.
El Salvadorians don't like us. Like, it's so fucking.
They have a reason to not fucking like us. Jesus Christ. Like,
I had an El Salvadorian gal in my army unit, and her parents culture is just like, what the fuck's the matter with you?
I went to El Salvador when I was in the army, and I was on a base, and I saw all of the old fucking AH-1s still marked with California and Nevada National Guard symbols and codes and shit that were used to strafe villages during the Civil War. We did that to them. Like, I have what happened to El Salvador is a fucking absolute atrocity, and it's so hand waved by the sort of like, and anytime you see a Democratic politician be like, oh, I'm so glad we had a strong president like Reagan when I was a kid. Man, fuck you. You want to just elide all of those things that Reagan did, all of those things that like the fact that Reagan was like, oh, sorry, the Congress is woke and gay, and you're not allowed to cut my funding for fucking paramilitary death squads in Central America. Can we maybe sell some weapons illegally to Iran and use that as slush money to fund the Contra so they can keep killing civilians? And then once we can, have another election to wipe away the woke and gay Democrats, we can then turn and just do it openly again. It's called Iran Contra. And you know what? You're so fucked up. Do you know who defended Ollie North?
Who's that?
The ACLU. Because they were like, there are some serious miscarriages of justice in the way he's being prosecuted. Like, that's the thing, right?
My wife sent me a video of a debate between Reagan and H.W. Walker Bush about immigration, where, in this 1980, where Reagan is talking about like, oh, we need to be more kind to our neighbors to the South. We need to realize we have problems that we can work on together, and we can have open communication and open this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, on the surface, it's like, oh, look at this. Reagan's talking about, open borders. But like underneath all of that is like, yeah, we need to be open and understand things so we can kill the shit out of you guys even fast. You guys have too many nuns down there, and we don't like that.
Well, so I don't know. This is a really brief primer, and to be honest with you, it's been a really long time since I was really more studied up on this. But the situation in what you have to understand about, so Reagan also said that San Salvador or Tegucigalpa or Guatemala City, I can't remember which city it was that he named, is closer to Houston than New York City. Like Central America is America.
Yeah.
And what he means by this is, what he meant was that like if there are governments that we disagree with, or there's things that we think are problems, then we're just going to enforce whatever we want, because technically speaking, it's right in our backyard. And the argument they were making was like, oh, it's going to be the Cuban Missile Crisis Part 2 in Nicaragua when the Contras overthrew Somoza, or during the very, very long and hideous Guatemalan Civil War. Similar in Honduras, there was never a kind of revolution against the government that would have upset the sort of, because it's the best way I could describe it is like they didn't have objective slavery outside of certain places on the Atlantic coast, which typically they were brought by the British, but the kind of debt peonage that happened in Central America and the like really, really hierarchical top-down society where like only a certain group of people are ever going to be allowed to be in power, and like that's like rigidly categorized and enforced. It's basically like the antebellum South without the slavery part, but that kind of like that like feudal aristocracy, that is Central America, and it's been that way, and it still is that way. It's just that you also have the intervention of insane Americans, whether it's like the United Fruit Company or J.P. Morgan or a Cornelius Vanderbilt or random guy from Tennessee who's like, we're going to annex Nicaragua and make it into a slave state. This happened.
Send Smedley Butler back on down there to get his third Medal of Honor by massacring a bunch more Central Americans.
But in El Salvador's case, they had a military government that was on Reagan's side, and they claimed that they had to fight the domestic insurgency. I believe it's the Jose Marti Liberation Front, but I might be wrong on this one. It was the FMLN, because it was the FSLN in Nicaragua, because it was for Augusto Sandino, the Sandinistas. And in El Salvador, see, in Nicaragua, they overthrew Somoza. Somoza fled, Sandinistas took over, and then the U.S. basically, the whole Contra part, it's a counter-revolutionaries, contra-revolutionarios, and basically they were elements of the Somoza-aligned security forces who fled, and the U.S. set up bases and training camps in Honduras to train and arm and equip, and kit out these basically regime elements of the regime that was overthrown to then go and
Take it back.
Massacre people. Take it back. Massacre people. Attack the government. Attack civilians who were sympathetic to the government. Attack infrastructure. Mine their harbors. Blow up their boats. Destroy their farms. And basically, this was like, when you think of the campus protests about the genocide in Gaza, it wasn't to the same scale, but in terms of like the things students were protesting about at American universities in the early 80s was what was happening in Central America. Specifically, it was Nicaragua, but also in El Salvador, because there, instead of it being, we hate the government and we're sending, instead of doing foreign internal defense, we're doing unconventional warfare in Nicaragua, foreign internal defense in El Salvador. They were sending people to do human rights training,
Sure.
And basically training them on torture and paramilitary stuff and death squad stuff and giving them, selling off old, like Vietnam vintage US military equipment to kit out the Salvadorian military to go and lay waste to any civilians and civilian areas that they thought were supportive of the FMLN. And like I said, I went there because we were doing like medcap shit. We were going out and like they were just, what it really was, if being honest, was it was medcap stuff where it also gave the Salvadorian military a chance to go and have like plausible deniability when actually they were trying to do surveillance. But like what I was doing was like, can we have helicopters to bring doctors in? So like it's sort of like, oh wow, the military has repurposed itself in a good way. It's doing like medical. Like, no, it's still doing bad military shit. It's just that Central America isn't they don't know in the US government sort of, big defense apparatus gives a shit other than like your odd Trump style conspiracy theory that like, Al Qaeda and the Chinese are trying to sneak nuclear weapons through or some shit. Like, but basically what I'm trying to say here is in El Salvador, there was brutal repression, and specifically in like the Archbishop Oscar Romero was murdered by the regime. 4 American Ursuline nuns were raped and murdered by the regime. The US government never sought redress for its own citizens being raped and murdered by a state it was aligned with. We have always treated El Salvador as a place that can just be where there's not even the pretense of caring about rule of law and human rights, more so than other countries in a lot of ways. But El Salvador also has the problem that it is not really a prime trafficking destination for drugs coming into America. However, it is a very, very unequal country, a very poor country. There's famously in El Salvador this concept that there's 14 families that basically are in charge of everything and always will be. It's very feudal in that regard. Economically, it's in not great shape. They use the US dollar as their official currency. Nayib Bukele basically was like, we're going to use Bitcoin now and fuck things up worse. And so many people, basically the worst of what's happened with gang culture in El Salvador, it's not like that didn't exist before, but a significant amount of it was exacerbated by the fact that the US started deporting people more, and they were deporting people who were, born and raised, or not born, but raised in California, went to prison in California, got exposed to prison gang shit and, LA, Southern California gang shit, and then deported them back to El Salvador. Like most of these people came as small children. They had no I've heard stories in San Salvador of people getting robbed by dudes at gunpoint who don't really speak Spanish. Like someone told a story about getting held up with at gunpoint, and a guy was like, "Dame tu phone," because he didn't know the word for mobile phone in Spanish because he was from fucking California, but he'd been deported. And that kind of stuff, it made it so much worse. And basically it's like this endless downward spiral of like, gang violence is so bad, we need a much more insanely repressive police state response. And then on a long enough timeline, Bukele, and being both a right-wing crypto freak and also really into like publicizing, hey, look at all this insane prison state shit that we do to just like abuse everyone's human rights and treat people like it's a fucking death camp. Trump was like, oh, well, I like what they're doing there. Let's send people to El Salvador.
Yeah, they've already got the plans down pat. They've already got the death squads. I saw Kristi Noem do a video interview in front of, like, she went to El Salvador and stood in front of a bunch of prisoners in El Salvador behind bars and was talking about fentanyl. So, it's all of this stuff, like, all of these things that you're seeing now America do. This is all the like 1939 shit that was happening in Germany. Yep. The initial repression, you can't do that and we're going to throw you in jail if you do that. And, the fact that they're getting away with it means that they're going to continue to get away with it, and eventually it's going to be too late, and we're going to have to put another 70 million people through a fucking blender to stop fascism again. So
I mean, also just bear in mind too that like when the Germans started doing this, it was always detention and deportation. It wasn't expressly framed as extermination. That came later, and that was never that wasn't even really. I mean, at least as I understand it, like the death camps part of things was never explicitly publicized, but the deportations and detentions were.
Yeah, nobody was going to be like, yeah, you weren't going to win by saying, hey, we're going to just start gassing people because we don't like them.
But also, they didn't start gassing people. They realized they started gassing people afterwards because they were like, well, it's psychologically too damaging to our soldiers to make them just shoot people to death day in and day out, and we're losing too many of our soldiers are committing suicide from this because it turns out human beings aren't meant to just be killing machines nonstop. And so they're like, oh, what would make this easy? I mean, like, this isn't hyperbole, and this isn't like off the cuff or conjecture. Like, this is Joe's done a bunch of episodes about this, that like it started like what we're seeing now in America and just got worse. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem that I have. And I think the thing for me is that, like, as I said before, I had nothing but positive experiences with people in El Salvador, like people, and I it's an absolutely beautiful country, but fuck its government infinity times. And my goodness, dude, I feel so bad that these people have to suffer just because they happen to be neighbors of fucking the United States of America.
I know. Like, it's not easy being with America, like, within touching distance, because they're going to fucking touch. And like, it's hard. But here's the thing. Americans are about to learn how hard it is to have America look unfavorably upon you, because like, everything happening in America right now is a retribution tour. It's you didn't elect me in 2020, so I'm going to punish everybody. That is 100% what we're seeing. I don't believe that Trump has any motivations beyond fuck the rest of you for not supporting me, so I'm going to go even harder into all of this stuff. And the American people are about to discover how much it sucks to have somebody who hates you suddenly be in charge of you. And, you know, that was happening in all the Central American countries because of, you know, America doesn't give a shit about you, so we're going to do whatever we want. And it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get worse, and it's gonna get worse. But Nate, let me leave everybody on a little bit of hope here, because one, we already have a playbook for all of this. And I think a lot of Americans now, like, I don't think you had as many people in Germany being like, oh, this seems like a bad idea. Probably you did, but not as loud as you did now, when everybody's like, this is a playbook we have seen before. Here's the playbook. You know, I feel like a lot of people today in America are louder and more shouty about it and are pushing more against it. Now, look, it's not working at the moment, but that doesn't mean you stop. Like, you don't fight fascism because you win. You fight fascism because it's fucking fascism. Like, no matter what, you're on the right side because you are fighting against fascism. And I think that at this point in time, I feel like Americans, we're dumb and we're going to let it continue. But I feel like, I hope we're not going to get to death camps. Jesus Christ. You know, I don't know if they certainly won't be in America. They would be outside of America. I mean, I guess we already have death camps. You know, what is Guantanamo Bay but a secret place to hide all the people? But also, you don't want. Yeah,
Guantanamo Bay is that, and then also when you think about El Salvador, it's like so many instances have taken place where people have been deported there, you know, illegally, and are now, you know, you're hearing from their lawyers, from their defense, like, we have no idea where they are. We have no contact with them. Like, and so you don't know if these people are going to get
disappeared,
if they're going to disappear permanently. Yeah, and so it's one of those things where it's happened. Yeah, I think that there is absolutely like a will to oppose this amongst Americans. I am embarrassed to see how much of the Democratic Party apparently feels like no, that's rude and you shouldn't do it. We should just hope for moderate Republicans to save us. It's like, got bad news for you guys.
Womp womp. You are the moderate Republicans now, Democratic Party.
The fuck are, yeah.
All that like anti-immigration rhetoric and not giving me Medicare for all and everything. You are the right-wing party. You are the central Republicans now. So have fun with that.
Yeah, cool guys. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I miss my friends at home. I miss certain things that are just, you know, no matter how far you go and how many more experiences you have, like the stuff you grew up with is what's always going to feel like home to you. But I think for me, my life has taken me outside for so long that I just would rather follow this weird ass road to see where it goes and just hope that like we're in a situation where I can, in some way, whichever it is, contribute to help. But like, you know, now that I have a kid too, it's just sort of like, I just want to do the best that I can to try to make the world better for her. And I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to try. I'm certainly not going to be, one of these people who just like fully ostraches themselves and refuses to acknowledge reality. I just wish that we could, primary the fucking ostrich party out. You know what I mean? And fucking, maybe be a little bit more confrontational about the things that are happening. But,
well, you got to go get your Swiss gun. You all get free guns, right?
No, we don't. People get, when they're in reserve training, or they're still in the reserves post-military service, they can bring guns home, but the ammo is like sealed and like it gets inspected.
Up.
And I'm not ever going to be in the Swiss military because by the time that I become a citizen of this country, I will be far too old to even be in the reserves. So no. Also, I wouldn't want to be in the military if I was eligible, and me having been in the U.S. military would actually count as sort of like, well, you did military service somewhere. And if something so bad happens in Switzerland that they have to fucking get my 50-year-old ass fucking back in uniform, then like it's obviously severe. You know what I mean? Because that's how old I'll be when I am eligible to apply for citizenship. All things considered. So,
but everybody, thank you, Nate. I hope everybody's not dooming too hard about everything happening in America, because like, look, it's save your own brain. Go enjoy things, have fun. It's springtime. Plant a garden,
but also like support things that people defend. Yeah. Even if like you could even if you can't protest, like supporting things that are providing legal defense to people, like that's really huge. Like money helps. Having conversations with people who are going to be receptive help. Like I don't say don't give up on it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist, but also don't feel as though there's some moral obligation to just stare the unfairness and the horror in the face nonstop and just kind of like cook yourself into a state of a kind of like depressed helplessness, because that doesn't help anybody else either.
Yeah.
I mean, like at the end of the day, like the people who have been renditioned, who've been deported, who are being held, like it doesn't help any of them if people are like, wow, it's so fucked up, this is so fascist. I'm like, I'm depressed and it's ruined my day. What does help is getting the attention and providing money for legal defense to try to get them the fuck out of those places.
Yeah. I've always been a big fan of like when I'm feeling down, I kick $25 towards Trans Lifeline, Feeding America. I know that there's a lot, like, my feed is constantly filled with people asking for money because they need help. And that also gets overwhelming, and it's hard to tell, what is and what isn't, something that you should be giving your money to. There are plenty of established places. I know that food assistance in America is being cut off, and Feeding America is a good place to send your money. Our trans homies, obviously need help. Trans Lifeline is a phone number that they can call into if they need support, if they need help, if they just need to talk to somebody. So that's always a great place to send a little bit of money. It's out there, and there's always, my wife and I have never been like we're going to get up and we're going to go to the protest and we're going to yell at the cops kind of people, but we have been hey, I've got an extra $25. Who needs it? Like I
went to a protest once and protested outside of Chuck Schumer's fucking apartment in 2017, but unfortunately he's just like, all your screams are just going to make me more of a Republican.
Yeah. It just make me stronger. Everybody, thank you so much. If you like what we do, of course, we have our Patreon, patreon.com/hellofawayti, where we have lots and lots and lots of more episodes for you. By the time you're listening to this, my Newsies episode with Eric Peacock should be up. I'm making Eric learn about musicals through Disney movies about newsboy strikes, and some Zoo Crew stuff. We got a lot of stuff coming out, so you can get up on all of that. $5 a month, you get 3 episodes a month, going back 8 years. So thank you so much for listening, and Nate, thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a good one.